Almighty God, as we have come together to begin our meeting of the Assembly, we humbly beseech you to grant to all our members the light and guidance of your Holy Spirit, that we may wisely take counsel together and come to such decisions as shall promote your glory and the well-being of all our citizens of this land, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be enjoyed by all people. Grant this for the sake of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Members, you may be seated.
Oath of allegiance of a new member. Announcements by the presiding officer. Assembly bills sent back from Cabinet. Assembly laws brought back from Parliament. Petitions, papers, presentation of reports from Dispute Resolution Committee, select commissions, select committees, Chief Secretaries' questions, questions to secretaries, request for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance, statement by secretaries or assistant secretaries, personal explanations, introduction of bills, motion relating to the business or sittings of the Assembly and moved by a secretary or assistant secretary, public business, executive council, motion.
Chief Secretary or Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy.
Deputy Presiding Officer, Deputy Chief Secretary, Secretaries, Assistant Secretaries, Minority Leader and other members of the House of Assembly, administrators of the Tobago House of Assembly, senior staff of the Tobago House of Assembly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen in the public gallery, local and international audiences following this presentation on radio, television, and other live streams. Members of the media, good morning. Deputy Presiding Officer, it is a humbling honor for me to present the third budget, which is likely to be my last as Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy of this administration before this distinguished House. As you know, the budget statement is a legislative mandate under Section 41 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996. Deputy Presiding Officer, the budget statement of the Tobago House of Assembly is a very important policy statement of expressed socio-economic intent for the ensuing fiscal year. It presents the objectives and the programs with their associated projects and initiatives strategically selected and designed to effect desired outcomes. Even more importantly, it establishes the estimated expenditure that is circulated as necessary to fund the operations of the Tobago House of Assembly and its estimated revenues for the fiscal year 2025. As I mentioned in my previous statements, and as I will do here again for emphasis, the existing constitutional arrangements and the fiscal and budgetary legislative frameworks deny Tobago access to the resources and the legislative instruments necessary for the development of the island and its people. It is the unpleasant experiences of this demonstrative denial from since 1962 even before the Assembly was re-established, that have kept Tobagonians fighting from generation to generation for constitutional transformation. This is because our current colonial constitution inhumanely provides for the central government to determine and control virtually every aspect of Tobago's social and economic development. Deputy Presiding Officer, more will be said on that matter later. We present this budget at a juncture in the tenure of this administration. We have been in office for about 2.5 years now, and the time is opportune for me to share some reflections on our successes, our key challenges, and the path we need to take going forward for our island to become the greatest little island on the planet. Deputy Presiding Officer, this is the underlying philosophy which shapes today's budget presentation. Today's budget presentation takes place against the backdrop of an intricate tapestry of global affairs in which the threads of peace and economic development are tightly interwoven, each influencing the other to shape the world we live in. However, lately, the canvas has been both tarnished with bloody wars, gun violence, and murders, and overshadowed by global economic challenges. On the front of global peace, the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian Gaza war has left thousands of men, women, and children dead, and tens of thousands more mutilated, and millions displaced, perpetuating a cycle of violence and despair with no clear end in sight, while the international community looks on seemingly helpless. The conflict in Ukraine, fueled by geopolitical ambitions and ethnic divisions, continues to defy efforts at resolution, casting a darkening shadow over relations between Russia and the West. Meanwhile, the rise of nationalist movements and the resurgence of old grievances threaten to unravel the fabric of unity that has long defined the European project. On the public safety and citizen security front, the Caribbean region continues to be severely impacted by gun violence and its attendant murders and emboldened gangs. On the economic front, while some countries are experiencing better than projected growth in their economic recovery, generally, the regional economy remains in the sluggish lane. Domestically, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, we continue to be battered by rising gun violence, gang-related murders, and an economy that is yet to find its development space and trajectory post-COVID-19. The central government has seemingly lost its way as it continues to be demonstrably incapable of deploying practical and sustainable solutions to the many problems confronting this republic. More pertinently, it is wantonly opposed to providing a reasonable, fair, and just share of the national resources to the Tobago House of Assembly. For example, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, in the just concluded midterm budget review, in which the government increased the 2024 budget by 2.3 billion, the Tobago House of Assembly was allocated only 50 million of the 300 million requested, when it should have received a minimum of 94 million in keeping with the Lawful Dispute Resolution Commission recommendations. This behavior can now be classified under the new criminal code as budgetary attrition 101. Deputy Presiding Officer, let me state here that notwithstanding the continued weaponization of the annual national budget against Tobago, this administration remains committed to the task of delivering on the handsome mandate it received from Tobagonians in December 2021. We have identified the key strategy to unlock Tobago's development potential through the strategic selectivity framework and a development pathway towards making Tobago the greatest little island on the planet. It is for these reasons the Tobago House of Assembly's 2025 fiscal package is themed Unlocking Tobago's Development Potential. And Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, might I add that part of unlocking Tobago's development potential might require Tobagonians to kick the door down. Deputy Presiding Officer, it would be remiss of me to proceed with this morning's presentation without extending my sincere gratitude to a number of individuals and groups whose invaluable inputs contributed immensely to shaping this statement. I want to thank the secretaries and assistant secretaries for their insightful contributions. I also want to thank the administrators and senior public servants across the divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly for their unwavering commitment and input to the preparation of this budget statement. To the various individuals and groups who over several meetings dutifully submitted budgetary proposals for consideration, I say thank you all. I must also say thanks to my constituents in particular and the people of Tobago more generally for the opportunity to serve this blessed land and for their continued support, encouragement, and understanding. I must thank my wife and extended family. Finally, I must also say a big and holy thank you to the mighty King of all kings for his continued grace and mercy and for directing and guiding me through this very challenging assignment. Deputy Presiding Officer, for the remainder of the presentation, I will proceed as follows. First, I will provide an outlook of the international, regional, and domestic economies. Second, I will present a review of the fiscal operations and achievements over the last 2 years. Third, the institutional strategy and development pathways for the period 2025 to 2045 will be delineated. Fourth, the selected programs and policy initiatives for fiscal 2025 will be presented. Fifth, I will share the details of the draft 2025 estimates of expenditure and financing options. And finally, I will conclude this presentation. Hopefully, my last presentation, won't be as long as my preceding presentations. No promises being made, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. I will now examine the outlook for the global and regional economies, and then the outlook for the national and local economy. Madam Presiding Officer, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, so accustomed to a beautiful face. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, Tobago's development challenges cannot be viewed in isolation, since the island is part of a small, open twin island state, which is itself connected to the rest of the world by trade. We must therefore scan the global economy for a good understanding of the economic projects in the year ahead. According to the International Monetary Fund, the global economy has shown resilience in the face of challenges and supply chain disruptions as food and energy crises resulted from the Russia-Ukraine conflict on the heels of similar disruptions during the pandemic. Global inflation has been trending downwards owing to the extensive monetary tightening, easing of supply chain restrictions, and a decline in China's export prices. Consequently, a global growth in outputs of 3.2% has been forecasted for the end of 2024 and continuing into 2025. Global headline inflation is projected to fall from 5.9% by the end of 2024 to 2.4%. Global output growth is forecasted to be largely driven by growth in emerging and developing countries, where the average growth rate is forecasted to be 4.2% in 2024 and 2025. Meanwhile, in the advanced economies, output is forecasted to grow a modest 1.7% in 2024 and 2025. Among the advanced economies, United States and Canada are forecasted to grow at 2.1% and 1.2% respectively in 2024, and by 1.9% and 2.3% respectively in 2025. Among the emerging and developing countries, China and India are forecasted to grow at 4.6% and 6.8% respectively in 2024, and by 4.1% and 6.5% respectively in 2025. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the West Texas Intermediate price of oil is forecasted to average $83 US per barrel by December 2024, but is expected to fall to US $81 per barrel in 2025. The Henry Hub price of natural gas is expected to average $2.20 US per MMBTU by the end of 2024 and $3.10 US per MMBTU in 2025. Deputy Presiding Officer, among the downside risks in the global economic prospects are the Israeli-Palestinian war and the associated geopolitical tensions, as well as geo-economic fragmentation that could increase barriers to the free flow of goods, capital, and labor. On the upside, there may be productivity gains from greater utilization of artificial intelligence, and also from successful structural reforms aimed at supporting the restraining needs that may arise from worker displacements. Regional economic outlook. Deputy Presiding Officer, Tobago's economic prospects should also be seen in terms of the economic trading links between the country of Trinidad and Tobago and those within Latin America and the Caribbean region. Within this region, output is projected to grow at an average of 2% and 2.5% in 2024 and 2025 respectively. In the English-speaking Caribbean alone, while countries such as Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica and Grenada are expected to grow above the regional average, Guyana stands out with forecasted rates of 33.9% and 18.7% in 2024 and 2025 respectively. Within the wider Latin American region, Venezuela, Costa Rica, and the Dominican Republic are all forecasted to grow well above the regional average. The post-pandemic recovery of tourism in the Caribbean is expected to continue, and remittance flow is also expected to remain positive in the short to medium term. There is still the need for cautious optimism given the extremely lengthy El Nino weather patterns, which will increase the possibility of climate-related disruptions that may negatively affect sectors such as tourism and agriculture. National Economic Outlook. Deputy Presiding Officer, the national outlook is extremely important for us in Tobago since our budgetary allocation is derived from government transfers and because of the importance of a healthy economic outlook in the nation on tourism in the island of Tobago. Not unlike the last fiscal year, the outlook for the national economy shows mixed economic fortunes for the energy and non-energy sectors. The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, in its economic bulletin of January 2024, reported robust growth in the non-energy sector, but more subdued energy sector activity. Growth in the non-energy sector was led by wholesale and retail trade, excluding energy, transport and storage, and the construction subsectors. Within the energy sector, however, there were declines in the crude oil and gas outputs and also in the production of energy commodities such as methanol, ammonia, and liquefied natural gas. The country's gross official reserves as at the end of December 2023 stands at US $6.3 billion, which represents about 7.8 months of import cover. Let me repeat that, because this is important. The country's gross official reserves as at the end of December 2023 stood at US $6.3 billion, which represents about 7.8 months of import cover. The Central Statistical Office recorded an average unemployment rate of 3.9% in 2023. By March 2024, headline inflation stood at an average of 0.8%, while core inflation stood at 1%. The central bank has maintained a repo rate at 3.5%, aimed at keeping domestic inflation in check. With subdued economic activity in the energy sector, the buoyancy of the non-energy sector could be expected to continue to drive the domestic economy over the short to medium term. Local economic outlook. Deputy Presiding Officer, the most recent survey of business establishments conducted by the Division of Finance, Trade and Economy for Tobago suggests that the Tobago GDP at constant prices rose from 1.65 billion in 2022 to 1.66 billion in 2023, an increase of about 1%. The state sector continues to dominate, accounting for 45% of Tobago's GDP in 2023. Finance, insurance, real estate, and business services accounted for about 27%. Tourism contributed about 13%. Transport, storage, and communication accounted for approximately 4%. Construction and quarrying also contributed about 4%. And agriculture and manufacturing contributed about 2%. The last labor market statistics for Tobago available from the CSO indicated for the fourth quarter in 2023, the rate of unemployment in Tobago was about 3%, marginally lower than the national unemployment rate of 4%. Approximately 60% of the labor force in Tobago was employed by the state sector, with the private sector employing about 40%. By contrast, nationally, 24% of the labor force was employed by the state sector, with the private sector employing about 76%. Note the difference. Moreover, the share of the labor force in Tobago with tertiary education as the highest level of attainment was 23%. The share with secondary education as the highest level was 60%, and the share with primary education as the highest level was about 17%. The labor market data for Tobago is largely in keeping with its historical patterns. In regard to prices and inflation, the most recent data on prices available from the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago suggests that Tobago recorded headline and food price inflation in April 2024 of 1.3% and 1.5% respectively. Core inflation, which excludes food and energy, was recorded at 1.2%. The inflation data showed marked improvements from what transpired a year ago when we saw double-digit food price inflation numbers. Deputy Presiding Officer, it is well known that Tobago experienced an oil spill earlier this year, starting in February 2024. Deputy Presiding Officer, the spill is the largest disaster to impact Tobago since Hurricane Flora. It threatened to extend into the maritime domains of neighboring countries. In fact, to some extent, it did, underscoring its scale and potential to escalate into a regional environmental disaster. Thankfully, this did not materialize. And this is a good place to commend the staff, the volunteers, and all those that work with and through the Tobago Emergency Management Authority. Thank you for that lasting legacy, former Chief Secretary Hochoy Charles. Deputy Presiding Officer, to date, the Tobago House of Assembly has dispersed 17 million in payments to contractors and suppliers. And I wish at this juncture, Deputy Presiding Officer, that very anti-Tobagonian senator from Mason Hall listen and listen carefully. However, Deputy Presiding Officer, the outstanding payments to contractors and service providers totaled 51.5 million as at April 30th, 2024. As at the end of April 30th, 2024, the outstanding payments to contractors and service providers totaled $51.5 million. However, cleanup activity continued beyond April 30th, 2024. It is projected that a further 16.5 million will be required to complete payments for all of the shoreline cleanup activities. It is expected that the THA will be able to formally declare the cessation of shoreline cleanup activities at the end of July 2024. The total cost of shoreline cleanup, therefore, will be summed to approximately $85 million. Deputy Presiding Officer, it is important to note that the cost of shoreline cleanup does not include the cost of final disposal of waste stored at Studley Park, which is estimated to be $60 million. Currently, Deputy Presiding Officer, waste is being stored in open cells at Studley Park, and should we receive extensive rainfall, can lead to an ecological disaster. Therefore, that $60 million required for final disposal of waste stored at Studley Park is crucial. It is against this backdrop of the foregoing that the THA requested $153 million in the midterm budget review to meet these unbudgeted expenditures, but was only allocated a mere $50 million. And we have not even counted relief efforts to the fisher folk. The result is that the THA has been faced with significant challenges in meeting its financial obligations and in properly disposing of the waste temporarily being stored at Studley Park landfill. This is clearly a contradiction to the public assurances given by the Prime Minister at the initial stages. The key follow-up actions are: 1. Assessment and economic valuation of the environmental damage. 2. Evaluation of the socio-economic impact. 3. Re-evaluation of the disposal of waste at Studley Park. And 4. Environmental research and restoration. Undoubtedly, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, these activities will attract significant cost implications to the THA, which at this point have not been fully quantified. And this exacerbates the gravity of the situation. Deputy Presiding Officer, the foregoing international, regional, national and local socio-economic environments represent the context in which we have framed our policy priorities and budgetary estimates for the THA for fiscal 2025. I now turn my attention to highlighting some of the key achievements of this administration. And I have been warned by my advisors not to list all and to leave some for the secretaries in the debate. But I'll try my best. This administration has been in office for 2 years and 6 months. We thought it opportune at this juncture to review our achievements and examine our challenges as we continue to chart the way forward towards creating the greatest little island on the planet. We are proud of what we were able to achieve despite obstacles and what I would call pure, unadulterated fight down, bad mind, and pure wickedness and spite at every turn. This is not just the central government, it is central government controlled agencies or our outdated constitutional arrangements or opponents from the other side or their misguided allies in Tobago. But we are not fazed. Whatever they do, we will ensure that we succeed. Whatever they do, they will not successfully stand in the way of Tobago's development. True. This is my solemn promise to the people of Tobago. Tobago shall overcome. And Tobago shall prevail. Not any other entity which shall remain nameless shall stop Tobago's journey to success. True. The journey thus far has been very interesting and revealing. There have been numerous discoveries, learnings, and insights which have better prepared us for the journey ahead. There was a whole lot of mess on aisle 8 to clean up, but this administration is the administration of cleaning up the mess that others left behind. This administration is the administration of completing where others prove to be incompetent. Deputy Presiding Officer, our achievements and deliveries were many and multifaceted, in that they were covered in a wide range of social and economic development sector issues. Deputy Presiding Officer, please permit me to highlight some of our achievements, starting with those in the social sector. We commissioned and commenced operations at the Roxborough Hospital, taking tertiary level care directly to Tobagonians in the east and northeast of the island. And I'm happy to announce that even as we speak, we are preparing for external examination and analysis of our processes at Roxborough, so that by the time we get to September 1, Roxborough will be 24 hours. We increased speech and language therapy sessions for Tobago children by 41%. We reintroduced vascular access surgeries from the 24th of January this year, and to date we have completed 48 cases. We increased the threshold of the emergency food card from $500 to a maximum of $1,500, dependent on the size of the cardholder's family. And guess what? Successful applicants no longer have to reapply every month. They receive benefits in 3-month tranches for a maximum of 1 year of food supplementation. Funeral assistance went up from $7,000 to $10,000. The REACH grant went up by 100% from $7,500 to $15,000. 1,310 cataract surgeries were successfully performed in phases 1 and 2, reducing the cataract backlog, with an additional 700 surgeries carried to be done in phase 3, which started on June 10th, 2024. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, we are ensuring that all Tobagonians can see and see clearly, because a clear-sighted Tobagonian will never see the PNM. We successfully completed upgrade and repair works to 54 primary schools and secondary schools to the tune of $70 million under the annual school repair program, and that is more than any other administration has ever spent in 2.5 years. We provided financial assistance to 71 new tertiary level students and continued assistance to 51 students. Repeat that. So we started financial assistance with 71 new tertiary level students, and we continued to provide assistance to 51 students under the financial assistance program to the tune of $2.6 million. While they are closing the gate, we are keeping it open for Tobago students. We distributed 1,072 computers and tablets to students and teachers at primary and secondary schools. We exposed over 450 persons to the World of Work program through the Youth Department and the Youth Energized for Success program. We distributed approximately $25 million in grants and subsidies through the Home Improvement Program, which is the most ever spent in a 2-year period on this program. We distributed over 140 parcels of land at developments including Bleming, Boko, Belgarden, Castara, Corland, and Kilgwin. And Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, If you should check the inherited average number of parcels given per year, it stood at 11, with 140 parcels in 2 years. Do the maths. We are way above the inherited average. Over 75 persons benefited from over $3 million for roof repairs in a partnership between the Tobago House of Assembly and Habitat for Humanity. We undertook and successfully executed the largest single street lighting exercise in the history of Tobago, with the installation of 516 street lights across the island. And that includes a whopping 113 between Kings Bay and Camberton in Shallerville, which was in total darkness for hundreds of years. And let me hasten to add, Castara to Lansome, we come in your side next fiscal. This is the administration of light. We invested $1.03 million in the program for rural electrification to the direct benefit of 90 families. We successfully trained 2,370 persons in the vocational skills program in 2022-2023, and we have a current cadre of 1,950 in training in 2024. We restructured CPEP to improve operational efficiency and productivity. We paid the reserve electricity bill for 5 hotels in the amount of $3 million to keep them open. We increased salaries and wages for CPEP and the URP before the central government raised the minimum wage for the URP daily paid workers by 100% and 88% respectively, and putting an additional $29.3 million in the pockets of Tobagonians. We employed 800 persons on a rotating basis in the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, and going forward, we intend on converting these to full-time jobs. We employed 377 persons in the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, and 150 persons in the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment, and Sustainable Development. Additionally, we increased the wages of the reforestation program and reforestation workers, and for the first time, the reforestation workers can say that their NIS payments are up to date. We also saw increased number of cruise passengers from 46,864 in 2022-2023 to 103,838 in 2023-2024, an increase of a whopping 121%. And Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I will resist the urge to compare the figures between 2022 to 2024 and what we saw in 2019 pre-COVID. I will leave some of that bang and spark for the Secretary of Tourism to present, because the numbers are trending upwards. We have invested $36.1 million under the Tourism Accommodation Relief Grants Program to the benefit of 124 applicants. $5 million under the Tourism Accommodation Upgrade Program to the benefit of 46 applicants. We invested a further $6 million in renovation and upgrade works on Manta Lodge and secured international branding for the hotel, which will receive its first guests in and around August 1, 2024. Deputy Presiding Officer, this is 6 million in additional works after Udicott hand over the key for the hotel. The Secretary will talk about what we received. We introduced and successfully hosted Tobago Carnival in October 2022 and 2023, successfully negotiated the resumption of the Condor flights from Germany to Tobago, improved operational efficiency at Tractor Pool with the acquisition of 6-wheeled tractors and excavator, a trailer truck, a bucket truck, a dump truck, thereby clearing the backlog of farmers who are awaiting these services. Deputy Presiding Officer, imagine we had persons waiting for as long as 10 years for services from Tractor Pool. But again, this is the administration of cleaning up mess. In the area of physical and social infrastructure development, we delivered the following among others. The Smithfield to Dutchford Connector Road, which they talk and have to drive on now. The St. Peter's Bay Road, giving residents vehicular access to their homes for the first time. The connector road from Lamy Road to Roxborough, and we have started another road in that area to provide access to farmers. Resurfacing of All Fields Road, the repairs to the Little Tobago Jetty, Main House and Pagoda rehabilitation projects. Refurbishment and upgrade of the prison in Tobago. Not our function, but we made it our business. Perhaps we're preparing a proper home for some of those who were here before. The Friendship Connector Road, the much talked about Friendship Connector Road, which I'm happy to say will be completed in a few months, and when completed, we will name it after Dr. Murray, Winston Murray. So that all who are traveling to and from the airport, the ANR International Airport, will be reminded of the resilience, the stick-to-itiveness, and the fighter spirit of a Tobagonia. We bridge at Google Patch and other civil works, giving residents in that area vehicular access to their homes. We refurbish and recommission fishing facilities, and the standout one is the one at Studley Park, which is now being utilized fully for the first time by the fisher folk in that area because of a new and enhanced design. Completion of phase 1 of the Palatine Fishing Depot, which had a foundation laid more than a decade ago. Upgrade of the Shore Park Cultural Complex. It is no longer leaking in that building. I'll tell you, we just fixed mess. Deputy Presiding Officer. Renovations of the Collar Hall Administrative Complex, now renamed the Hochoy Charles Administrative Complex. Successful cleanup of approximately 15 kilometers of coastline from Scarborough to Crown Point, removing 60,000 barrels of oily liquid waste, 24,000 cubic yards of oily solid waste emanated from the oil spill which occurred in February this year. Construction of the Coral and Beach Sport Arena, the first major sporting facility built on this island in over a decade. Completion of electrification of the Patience Hill Playground. And the commencement of the electrification works at Louisdor Playing Field. Upgrade to the YMCA pool at Corlan and upgrades at Kendall, which will be reopened in time for the new school term. Deputy Presiding Officer, the foregoing just highlights a few of our major achievements over the last 2 years. You see, it feels like a decade the amount we have done. The last 2 years and 6 months. Our achievements are even more noteworthy as they took place in the midst of budgetary attrition, legislative obstacles, and the general lack of support from our unpatriotic opponents and some self-serving social and political commentators with personal agendas. And perhaps in my wind up, I will talk about some of them. Deputy Presiding Officer, my administration has found the strategy to unlocking Tobago's development potential. People are asking what was happening all the time. The wrong people had the keys, Deputy Presiding Officer. Therefore, the next 18 months promises to be a time of elevated social and economic delivery to Tobagonians. There is a saying that the reward for good work is more work. Therefore, my administration is prepared and ready to do more for every Tobagonian everywhere. I will not set out in detail my administration's institutional strategy for fiscal 2025 and beyond. Madam Presiding Officer, our selected Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, our selected institutional strategy for fiscal 2025 and beyond and the associated priorities were determined from a series of technical reviews and analyses of development plans prepared for Tobago from the mid-1960s, long before I was a thought to Lynn and Jundi. The records have shown that at least 11 development plans were prepared that focus entirely on Tobago's social, economic, and spatial development. The last two were done in 2005 and 2010. The review revealed that in the main, the plans addressed fundamental social and economic issues and matters related to the lack of civic infrastructure. Sadly, many of these issues persist today. Although a lot has changed since then, many of the recommendations are still germane to some of the key development issues facing Tobago today. For example, Deputy Presiding Officer, the 1965 plan that was prepared following the devastation of Hurricane Flora in 1963 recommended improvements to Tobago's security infrastructure by the construction of police stations, one in Plymouth, one between Scarborough and Roxborough, one along the north side coast that is still being serviced by the Moray Police Station. These remain part of the 90% of the recommendations of all the plans that were not implemented. Deputy Presiding Officer, the review were also greatly impacted by the everyday reasons that gave urgency to the need for a technically sound institutional strategy and development framework that will unlock the island's true development potential, thereby putting Tobago on a sustainable and resilient pathway to becoming the greatest little island on the planet. This is what gave rise to the budget theme for fiscal 2025, unlocking Tobago's development potential. The keys that will unlock Tobago's development potential come naturally from the findings of the technical review and analysis conducted on all the development plans for the island, the everyday reasons, and the interceding annual budgetary work plans. The findings, as mentioned earlier, reveal that the provisions and development prescriptions are all in the main still relevant today. These findings are significant given the call from many quarters for a new Tobago development plan, the last one having expired in 2017. Tobago is not void of development plans. What is evidently missing is the capacity and capability to effectively and efficiently implement the development prescriptions over the past 6+ decades. This continues to manifest as an implementation deficit up to today on account of the financial, administrative, and technical limitations, as well as the legislative constraints that continue to define Tobago. Therefore, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, what is urgently needed is a technically sound and rational institutional strategy designed and engineered to enhance and elevate implementation across Tobago's social and economic development ecosystem. My administration has taken the informed decision to pursue Tobago's development within the strategic selectivity institutional framework. In the landscape of development, where resources are often limited and challenges abound, the concept of strategic selectivity presents itself as a guiding principle for crafting effective development strategies. In essence, strategic selectivity speaks to the development of a practical and scientific methodology of selecting where to allocate resources, interventions, and efforts to maximize impact and sustainability. It's about prioritizing development programs, projects, and sectors based on impact, scale, pace, and most importantly, the available financial and institutional resources. Therefore, selectivity can be viewed as a natural outcome of a carefully constructed output-based budgeting optimization model that acknowledges the interconnectedness and complexity of our development issues linked to our overall goal of making Tobago the greatest little island on the planet. Deputy Presiding Officer, this administration views strategic selectivity as very critical to the overall development outcomes being pursued to positively impact the lives and well-beings of Tobagonians. Research reveals that the strategic selectivity model has been used successfully by multilateral development agencies, such as the World Bank Group, in countries with significant and persistent resource constraints. As such, selectivity can be developed as a key strategy in Tobago, where our development needs are great compared to the financial resources that are made available through the national budget. Relatedly, at its core, strategic selectivity requires a deep understanding of the context in which development interventions have to operate. It requires critical consideration of factors such as socio-economic dynamics, political landscape, cultural norms, environmental conditions, and in Tobago's specific case, our colonial constitution. Deputy Presiding Officer, it is worth mentioning here that a technical analysis of the development projects and programs on the books of the THA revealed that currently there are 406 projects in the public sector investment program. 406. In fiscal 2024 PSIP, the Tobago House of Assembly was allocated 260 million for 370 projects. The remaining 36 projects received no allocation. Of the 370 projects that received an allocation, 366 were ongoing and 4 were new proposals. And the 366 that were ongoing because of insufficient allocations over the years. Deputy Presiding Officer, the message in these observations, coupled with the everyday administrative limitations and human resources capacity challenges that we have been recording, is that reducing the number of projects is an urgent development priority for Tobago. We don't want to, but we have to. One of the fundamental aspects of strategic selectivity is the recognition that all of our problems cannot be addressed at the same time, nor can they be treated with equal intensity. Therefore, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, selectivity advocates for focusing on high priority areas where program interventions are likely to impact broader positive transformation and change. This approach promotes and enables the most efficient use of resources and minimizes the risk of spreading efforts too thinly, thereby diluting impact and effectiveness. Therefore, our calculated intent is to incrementally reduce the number of projects from fiscal 2025 and realign them based on impact, scale, and pace, thereby systematically unlocking Tobago's development potential. Relatedly, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, my administration recognizes and understands that transforming an indiscriminate development culture into a selective and disciplined one will not be easy. Indeed, it will take some doing to implement, especially as our development needs are overwhelming and the demands from the public are also overwhelming. However, what is clear, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, is that without this brave, bold, and big effort to improve development spending impacts through strategic selectivity, the island's development will remain unimpactful and virtually stagnated. Therefore, our drive is to institutionalize strategic selectivity by deliberately doing fewer but larger program operations that would effectively leverage the resources of the THA and those of our development partners, thereby delivering greater and much improved benefits to Tobagonians. Moreover, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, strategic selectivity emphasizes the importance of building partnerships and collaborations to amplify impact. In recognition of the fact that no single actor, organization, or entity holds all the necessary expertise or resources, strategic alliances enable the pooling of diverse strengths and resources towards common development goals. Therefore, this administration is committed to promoting and protecting our partnerships within our community, international agencies, civil society, and the private sector towards enhancing the effectiveness and sustainability of our development efforts. I will now turn to the development pathways we have adopted. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, strategic selectivity promotes the significance of adaptability and flexibility in development strategies. While it is essential to have a clear plan and set objectives, it is equally crucial to remain responsive to evolving circumstances and feedback from clients and stakeholders. This means that we must be willing to adjust priorities, reallocate resources, and pivot strategies based on new information and the changing dynamics on the ground. Therefore, coupled with our deployment of the selectivity framework, my administration commissioned the development of a strategic targeted development program, planning approach towards ensuring that Tobago achieves high-income economy status in the next 2 decades. The approach has been entitled Towards the Greatest Little Island on the Planet, Strategic Development Planning Pathways for Tobago 2025 to 2045. These development planning pathways represent a fundamental shift from previous approaches to development planning in Tobago. The preference for this approach is based primarily on the need for a more flexible, emergent, practical, and resilient approach to planning that is designed to encourage continuous learning, innovation, and adaptation, buttressed by the principles, policy prescriptions, institutional arrangements, and decision-making processes that are geared towards identifying and integrating the most appropriate solutions to public problems. Deputy Presiding Officer, a central and underlying feature of the planning pathway is the 21 development priorities derived from the people's mandate and the everyday emerging issues confronting the island. Some of our core priorities are targeted GDP growth, education and innovation, a scientifically driven modern healthcare system, safe and sustainable food systems, a sustainable tourism sector, digital transformation, and growth of the SME sector. These priorities will shape the development work programs of the divisions. The programs will inform the projects and initiatives of the divisions and the monitoring frameworks with clearly established targets and measures of progress and success in our project implementation and management matrix. We have carefully curated how we should present the planning pathway to Tobagonians. We are mindful that we are planning in the most technologically advanced and fluid era in the history of modern man. We are also patently aware that many of our young and not so young engage with information in ways far removed from our engagement modalities 20 years ago. We are also mindful that many Tobagonians in the diaspora have demonstratively expressed a keen interest in the development of their native island. It is because of this awareness, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, that we have decided to launch and host the information system related to the development planning pathway digitally as a core component of the MyTHA online platform. The online portal will allow for every Tobagonian and more generally anyone to sign up for an account to provide real-time feedback on the ideas presented on the website. We will be able to send alerts to every account holder via text message. In this way, Tobagonians will be constantly involved in the development planning process. Additionally, we will continue to engage our stakeholder communities and receive their concerns and recommendations via our town hall meetings. Deputy Presiding Officer, I am pleased to report that with the assistance of the Tobago Information Technology Limited, we have been engaged in building our greatest little island on the planet web portal. Relatedly, we have set a deadline of the first quarter of fiscal 2025 for the full launch of the website. Deputy Presiding Officer, please permit me to now present our key sectoral priorities, programs, projects, and initiatives for fiscal 2025. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I will start with the administration's plan to stimulate business development, economic growth, and diversification. Through the Division of Finance, Trade and Economy, the Office of the Chief Secretary, and various THA special purpose companies, there are a number of initiatives geared towards business development, economic growth, and diversification of the Tobago economy. Previously, we indicated our intent to address the inadequacies of financing options and of business support services currently provided by Venture Capital and Equity Fund Limited and the Business Development Unit. Accordingly, the administration commissioned the establishment of an integrated development financial institution, namely the Tobago Development Fund. This fund is intended to provide financing for commercial borrowers who are either unable to meet the borrowing requirements of traditional banking institutions or who lack sufficient access to the institutionalized credit market. The services to be provided will encompass long-term investment finance, the issuing of shares and debentures, acceptance of new securities for credit, leasing, factoring, and offering of additional non-financial services as a supplement to credit grants. The fund will provide technical support related to products, processes, and markets, and engagements in capacity building programs to support business startups, innovative projects, and other institution building activities. It will also mobilize investment capital to supplement the financing of economic growth and development program and projects of the Assembly, and will supply low-cost funding for the medium to long-term expansion and development of businesses on the island. As a precursor to the full operation of the Tobago Development Fund, we recently finalized the startup of a loan guarantee program, which will initially be administered by the First Citizens Bank, but will be continued within the fund. This will ensure that creditworthy businesses in Tobago are able to obtain the required financing to address the short and medium-term needs to stay afloat, as well as invest in new business ventures. Any registered business, partnership, or company whose major business operations are conducted in Tobago and which approaches its banker with a minimum loan requirement of $750,000 and a maximum of $3 million may be considered for the loan guarantee once the eligibility criteria are met. The guaranteed amount will cover up to 80% of the total amount of the loan granted. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, in fiscal 2025, the Strategic Business Support and Development Unit will continue to play a key role in supporting the efforts of Tobago's SMEs to successfully establish their products and services outside of Trinidad and Tobago. In recognition of the development of Tobago's SMEs and in support of those who are very close to doing so, key partnerships currently being discussed will provide opportunities for Tobago SMEs and in the areas particularly of warehousing and logistics, productivity capacity, and marketing. It is also notable that selected producers of Tobago sweets have put in the necessary work to prepare their products for international markets. This includes product testing and packaging support. It is expected that within the next 3 months, these suites will enhance the presentations made by Trinidad and Tobago's commercial attaches as they work to engage North America, Guyana, the United Kingdom, Jamaica, and Panama on our behalf. It is also important to note, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, that key segments of the value chain will be engaged with a view to strengthening them. The SBSDU proposes to engage producers of labels and packaging solutions in Tobago with a view of strengthening this key sector in support of our SMEs, thereby reducing costs. It will also allow for the development of producers of this key segment of our value chain. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the days of tying the red mango in a bag are far behind us. In fiscal 2025, EID COT will actively seek public-private partnerships to develop additional built spaces at Cove. These spaces will be specifically earmarked for agro-processing and light manufacturing. In addition, EID COT will expand its land tenancy initiative campaign to stimulate interest and uptake at the park. These initiatives will include a waiver of lease premiums of up to 5 years, as well as complimentary access to EID COT's project management and business development services. In fact, the expansion of its land tenancy operation began some time ago. As part of the campaign, land-based tenants will be able to utilize their lands for the first time as collateral for securing financing only for their business operations at Cove. We made that change, we made that fix. This is expected to result in the signing of additional large land-based tenants in the short term. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, in fiscal 2025, Studley Park Enterprise Limited is committed to undertaking significant strategic development initiatives aimed at improving profitability, enhancing operational efficiency, and building organizational resilience. These initiatives will create a more robust and sustainable organization capable of adapting to market change or market changes and earning significant foreign currency for Tobago. The underlying strategic objectives are to boost aggregate production and to expand its product portfolio. To meet these strategic objectives, SPEL will undertake the following activities in fiscal 2025. Purchase and install 2 modern crushing plants to enhance aggregate production capacity and efficiency. These new plants will address current and projected supply deficits and reduce operational inefficiencies caused by the consistent repairing of the outdated plants currently being used by SPEL. 2, acquire supporting equipment and machinery such as mobile equipment and maintenance tools needed to maximize the production capacity of the 2 new crushing plants. 3, upgrade the concrete batching plant and the asphalt plant to improve operational efficiency and reduce downtime. 4, establish the infrastructure and acquire the machinery needed to produce bricks and pavers, thereby expanding the product portfolio and tapping into new market segments. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, SPEL will use a mix on and off budget financing to give effect to these initiatives in fiscal 2025. The THA, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, through its Foreign Direct Investments Unit, now under the Office of the Chief Secretary, aims to foster a diversified, resilient, and sustainable economy by promoting Tobago as a prime investment destination. And we do Google all potential investors. This initiative is expected to drive positive socio-economic transformation for the benefit of the island's residents and future generations. Key focus are film, tourism and hospitality, infrastructure, renewable energy, agribusiness, manufacturing, and innovation. The FDI unit will support Tobago's economic development by promoting the growth of these key sectors, creating employment opportunities, and facilitating public-private partnerships to leverage the sector's expertise and resources for successful investment projects. The unit will prioritize investments that align with sustainable development goals, considering environmental, social, and governance factors. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I will now detail some of our plans to strengthen and reform government agencies. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, Tobago's constitutional rights and entitlements must not be fettered by the Constitution, but instead be promoted and protected through rational and democratic transformation of our 1976 colonial constitution. Accordingly, the Tobago Autonomy Project, defined by the decades of struggle for internal self-government, remains a selected and active strategic policy objective of this administration in fiscal 2025. It is a foundational pillar in our greatest little island on the planet design and goal. Therefore, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, in fiscal 2025, we are going to continue our relentless pursuit of the following core transforming upgrades to the constitutional and legislative foundational governance relationship between the THA and the central government. One, and I want to be lucidly clear here, a constitutional definition of Tobago that is in keeping with the United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea, UNLCOS, and that embodies the socio-economic, cultural, and political histories of the people of Tobago and Trinidad. Any Tobagonian who disagrees with defining Tobago in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago is not a real Tobagonian. Such a person must be treated as a sellout and a traitor. Two, the conferral of final constitutional authority and powers on the THA for all the matters or items listed in the current 5th schedule. This transformation would clearly establish the matters for which the THA has final authority and control over in Tobago, the matters that the central government are responsible for, and the reserve list for Tobago in respect of other matters relating to Tobago. An appropriate transformation of Section 53 of the Constitution by the creation of the Tobago Legislature with defined constitutional authority and powers to make laws and associated regulations for the matters for which Tobago and the THA would have final constitutional responsibility and control. That's number 3. Number 4, an appropriate transformation of Section 75 of the Constitution by placing a fetter on the Cabinet in relation to the matters for which the Executive Council of the Assembly would have final constitutional authority. 5th, an appropriate transformation of Section 113 of the Constitution to provide for a minimum share for the THA of 8% of the national budget and of any budgetary supplement or of any grants given to the central government for the administration of the country. 5, sorry, that's number 6. Madam Presiding Officer, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, we have submitted these and other proposed adjustments to the Constitutional Reform Committee recently established by the central government. And we are saying that while the rest of the country may not be ready for constitutional change, Tobago ready long time. Adjacent to this, we will continue to organize, mobilize, and empower Tobagonians and, by extension, the national community on these issues and matters that speak to the urgent need for constitutional reform. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, digital transformation also remains a selected high priority policy of this administration. As such, the digitization of the THA through our Tobago online program, of which the My THA project is the first phase, will continue with alacrity. In fiscal 2025, we propose to accelerate the implementation of an integrated financial management information system, or IFMIS, with an interface with our e-tender platform, which was launched earlier this year. It is important to note that the Tobago House of Assembly did everything possible and is ready for its IFMIS. Sure. It is the central government holding back the progress of the THA in this regard. With our e-tender platform, all agencies, companies, divisions, departments of the THA will utilize e-tender as of the end of July 2024. Moreover, our PSIP functions will also be migrated to the digital platform. We will intensify the digitization of the Assembly's social services delivery systems with the aim of completing the online application digital infrastructure by January 1, 2025, and the implementation of the associated e-wallet payment method. This means, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, that in the near future, a family experiencing fire or flood or some natural disaster does not have to foot it to Glen Road to even make an application, much more to collect a check. Sure. They will stay in the comfort of their neighbor's Wi-Fi, presuming that their Wi-Fi is gone, apply online, receive notification of success online, and receive requisite funding virtually. That is development, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. And no other government institution in the country will be as advanced as the THA in this regard. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, Another focal area for digitization is the health records of the population. As we continue to the deployment of digital applications to the business processes of the Assembly, we will simultaneously equip our public officers with the high-touch skills necessary for the effective and efficient use of same. Please permit me now to speak to the issue of public safety and citizen security. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the protection and promotion of the safety and security of the citizenry is the core responsibility of any government. In this regard, my island government places the public safety and security of Tobagonians at the top of its priorities, because every good thing done will be unsustainable and unproductive in an unsafe, unsecured Tobago. Therefore, we are intensely monitoring the disturbingly increasing trend of gun violence and murders in the island, and we stand prepared to do whatever is necessary to stop this trend. And I'm happy to see the chief in the audience today. Let me repeat this. We stand prepared to do whatever is necessary to stop this trend. Accordingly, in fiscal 2025, we will strengthen the socially enabling environment for us to take collective actions against those who we know have illegal firearms in our communities. In this regard, the Tobago House of Assembly will do the following. Immediately reinstate the Tobago Community Safety Program with the tagline, "When you are safe, I am safe." The program will be implemented and managed by the Division of Community Development, Youth Development and Sport, and will develop projects in relation to the following. 1. The mobilizing, organizing, and empowering of our communities to collectively and effectively participate in the promotion and management of their safety and security. 2. The establishment of community services support secretariats in all of our community centers and multipurpose facilities. 3. The building of trust and confidence pathways between our communities and law enforcement agencies, which is critical to the call for collective action against gun violence and murders. 4. The development and implementation of co-created community safety plans designed and engineered on the unique risk profile of each community. Next, we will look at community safety rallies and events. And finally, the establishment of a framework for the building of safer communities through environmental designs and the deployment of smart city technologies such as facial recognition. In addition, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, in the medium to long term, the THA will establish a Department of Public Safety and Security in the Office of the Chief Secretary. This department will amalgamate all the units, agencies, and departments of the THA that have a core public safety function. I am happy to note here, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, that the legal review for the establishment of this department is complete, that all of the necessary analysis and feasibility studies are completed, and we are prepared to move ahead with this department within the next few months. Further, we are increasing our advocacy for the establishment of the THA police, and we completed a legal review to find a pathway for implementation. We are now preparing to do a public safety audit, the findings and discoveries of which will inform the institutional design and operation of the department. Relatedly, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, my administration is unconditionally committed to working with our law enforcement agencies to effect whatever fixes are necessary for improving their operational effectiveness and efficiency in Tobago. In this regard, I will continue the ongoing collaborative work with the Office of the Commissioner of Police towards ensuring the continued operational presence of some of the key specialized units on the island. The same will be done with the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, please permit me to now look at our selected strategies for the building of the tourism sector and the orange economy. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, as this administration positions itself to follow a strategic pathway to the island's development, the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation has developed as its foundation an approach rooted in responsible development, resilience, and stakeholder collaboration. This approach has tremendous potential.
May you pause so that I can allow the presiding officer to take the seat.
Ladies and gentlemen, presiding officer.
Chief Secretary, have your seats, everyone. Chief Secretary, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I guess I will make much errors now. So, tourism and the orange economy. Madam Presiding Officer, as this administration positions itself to follow a strategic pathway to the island's development, the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation has developed as its foundation an approach rooted in responsible development, resilience, and stakeholder collaboration. This approach has tremendous potential for impactful socio-economic growth through the development of a well-curated and integrated tourism sector and exploitation of the orange economy. Our selected approach to tourism development involves an elevated focus on issues such as the improvement of tourism infrastructure, product enhancement, airlift, human resource development, and research capacity. Therefore, in fiscal 2025, the division will continue its maintenance and upgrade of the existing tourism infrastructure across the island. There will be significant upgrades to the Tobago beach facility at an estimated cost of $15 million to a new flagship attraction called the Tobago Beach Club. Transformation of the home of the Blue Food Festival into an entertainment and commercial hub in Bloody Bay, north of Tobago, at an estimated cost of $14 million. Restoration of the historical value of the Fort King George Lighthouse as a tourist attraction at an estimated cost of $3 million. Beautification of Scarborough at an estimated cost of $3 million to uplift the capital through upgrades to various spaces. Construction of a beach facility, pier, and jetty in Louisdor, and development of the Highland Waterfall Nature Trail in Moriah as part of our community tourism product initiative at a budgeted cost of $3 million. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, another critical area of focus is the economically sustainable airlift to the island. Going forward, British Airways and Condor will remain and I'm resisting the urge to let some cats out the bag. But we will also continue our strategies to attract airlift that will increase our connectivity with North America and the traditionally strong Scandinavian market. We may see as early as July 17th, the launching of new airlift to the island. Additionally, in fiscal 2025, avenues to open Tobago, destination Tobago, to increase direct regional airlift will be pursued. Further, we will continue to negotiate with Caribbean Airlines for the return of the domestic capacity to pre-COVID numbers. This will significantly improve the ability to seamlessly connect Tobago, not only for domestic travelers and visitors, but also for international travelers arriving at Piaco and connecting to Tobago. Fiscal 2025 will also see the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation collaborating with the Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute for the establishment of a scholarship program for short courses and degree programs. The division has envisioned that this partnership will drive the retooling of the workforce and reculturing of minds and attitudes regarding tourism. This is a continuation of work done on customer service with stakeholders in Tobago as part of a partnership between the division and the THTI. Madam Presiding Officer, the division will also collaborate with Rural Development Unit in the Division of Settlements, Public Utilities, and Rural Development. In this partnership, communities in East and Northeast Tobago, including those in the designated man and the biosphere space, will benefit from capacity building through training, mentorship, and awareness in support of community tourism development. Further, 15 communities will benefit from targeted intervention to address the following identified challenges: limited community engagement, sustainability and preservation, economic marginalization, limited resources, and lack of expertise. Rural communities such as Golden Lane could see themselves in today's lane, in modern lane, with advanced services from the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation. Our strategic aim is to empower rural communities to overcome barriers and to unlock their full potential for socio-economic development through a sustainable and thriving tourism sector. Another key area of focus of the division is product enhancement and diversification and development. In fiscal 2025, we will provide technical support for the development of community tourism based on the Castara model, which has had international best practice recognition. Our plan is to replicate it on our community-based tourism development trust. Madam Presiding Officer, fiscal 2025 will also see us developing and implementing a sport tourism policy aimed at building a solid strategy to attract tournaments, monetize the existing world-class infrastructure, and ensuring that those that were poorly built or poorly designed, such as the indoor facility at Bacolet, will be done to world-class standards to attract sport tourism potential. This initiative is designed to be executed in collaboration with the Division of Community Development, Youth Development, and Sport. Madam Presiding Officer, as part of our broader strategy to develop the tourism sector, we will also focus on the cultural and creative industries, otherwise known as the orange economy. The island's orange economy has significant potential for exponential growth. Known for our creativity and rich tangible and intangible culture, we are poised to tap into the global $1 trillion orange economy to drive Tobago's socio-economic growth and development. In addition to the continuation of engagement through the 2024-2025 work plans, the Culture Department and the companies and agencies will focus in fiscal 25 on 3 selected initiatives. 1, artist development. This initiative is envisioned to drive the development of the craft and skills of participants for an impactful and sustained professional career in the entertainment industry. The division will partner with industry experts for the implementation of the Artist Development Program. Madam Presiding Officer, if Barbados can produce Rihanna, we have about 20 more Rihannas right here. Number 2, the Yard Project. This initiative will serve as a supportive incubator of talent and tourism business alongside the Community Tourism Trust. The Yard will move across communities to unearth and showcase indigenous talent, local businesses, and tourism assets that are both popular and lesser known. Each yard will be uniquely tailored to fit the community's cultural heritage and historical antecedents. Thirdly, the Tobago Carnival. While I'm at camp, this is developing nicely, I see. The Tobago Carnival. This year will mark the 3rd edition of this event. Last year's version of the carnival was undoubtedly a tremendous success, with tens of thousands of persons from the world over participating. As this event continues to grow and develop, our aim is to ensure that local stakeholders derive greater socio-economic benefits as their capacities continue to improve. Madam Presiding Officer, let me now speak to that which was once dead but is now alive, the agriculture and agro-processing sector. Madam Presiding Officer, the availability of safe, healthy, and affordable foods, as well as increased value added from the agricultural sector, remains a critical priority of this administration. Our strategic and targeted approach to the development of the sector is to increase the share of the agriculture sector GDP to 5% in the next 3 years. Mark that down. Moving to 5% of our GDP in the next 3 years. Our aim is to develop scientifically designed and technologically driven sustainable food systems in Tobago, thereby promoting the uptake of science and technologies in our agriculture practices. If nothing else, the one lesson emanating from COVID-19 pandemic is the need to develop sustainable food supply networks. Madam Presiding Officer, the agriculture sector in Tobago continues to be plagued by some critical challenges that continue to stymie its development. They include the following: predial larceny, pests and diseases, limited application of innovations, new technologies, and climate-smart practices, production inefficiencies and restricted scales of production, land tenure and land preparation limitations, limited product value chain development, and inadequate marketing arrangements. Madam Presiding Officer, these challenges must be addressed if we are to stand any chance of developing sustainable food systems. In fiscal 2025, there are a number of measures aimed at enhancing the island's food security and sovereignty and the development of the agro-processing sector. One of our primary projects is the continued development of the Tobago Agriculture Research Institute, or TARI. TARI aims at building the capacity to use research and scientific knowledge to guide the development of the agriculture sector in Tobago. TARI will continue a wide range of research, training, and certification options to local, regional, and international students. The institution will form collaborations with other local, regional, and international institutions to ensure rigorous academic standards are developed and maintained. Earlier this year, a board was appointed to lead the development of the institution, and a number of programs are expected to be rolled out soon. The Kendall Farm School is being repurposed, to house this institute. Madam Presiding Officer, another critical project is the construction of the Mechanical and Agro-Technology Hub. This project is aimed at enhancing the efficiency and reliability of services which now reside at Tractor Pool. The current range of services now offered at Tractor Pool will be expanded to meet the growing needs of farmers in the island. Madam Presiding Officer, please note that we are moving from a situation where Tractor Pool could not provide services to farmers to now expanding the range of services being offered to farmers. Another key project is the establishment of a modular poultry abattoir in Hope. This abattoir will have the capacity of 3,000 to 6,000 birds per hour and is targeted to stimulate the development of the broiler sector in Tobago. The plant will drive the transformation, enhance efficiency and profitability of the island's broiler poultry industry. Our objective is to increase the share of the local poultry market by the end of 2025. The Tobago Genetic Improvement Project involving small ruminants is an important project under this administration. This project focuses on the continued strengthening and developing of the genetic capacity of small ruminant sector, meaning sheep and goats in Tobago. The island has been recognized for the genetic capacity of its small ruminant sector. There is some potential for the export of these genetic materials and the earning of foreign exchange. An investment of $4 million is proposed for fiscal 2025. Madam Presiding Officer, other initiatives in fiscal 2025 to stimulate the development of the agriculture sector are as follows: construction of shade houses, thereby adopting the use of the technology that promotes intensive farming on small portions of land with very high yields, restarting of the Agricultural Access Road Program at a budgeted cost of $32 million. In fact, that has already been restarted. Rehabilitation of cocoa estates with the introduction of solar-powered bird squawker sound deterrent systems to treat with parrots and cockroaches. The squawker sound systems are already on island and are already in use, and we're already planting cocoa all over the island. Establishment of a food hub in Mason Hall at a cost of $1.5 million. Madam Presiding Officer, to ensure greater value added from our agriculture production, we will continue to pursue the integration of and articulation between the island's agriculture sector and its agro-processing industry. Towards this end, in fiscal 2025, we will develop and establish an intermediate agro-processing facility in Louisdor. In fact, let me rephrase that. We will open the intermediate agro-processing facility in Louisdor. This project is already out for tender. This is a modular food processing facility that is designed to have 3 specialized processing areas to meet the diverse needs of agro-processors. One section of the facility will focus on the production of value-added items such as jams, jellies, and sauces for local and regional markets in the first instance. Another area of the operation will focus on increasing the value added of root crops through alternative flour production. The other section will cater for the processing of hams, smoked chickens, and smoked fish. And the hams we're talking about there is probably beef or chicken ham. I'm sure it's not. Just lightening the mood, Madam Presiding Officer. The other section will each production area, will be outfitted with high quality equipment to ensure quality controls as well as effective and efficient management. Small agro-processors will have access to this entire facility. This means, Madam Presiding Officer, that production will move from home kitchens to an industrial space that meets the standard. The budgeted cost of this project in fiscal 2025 is $8 million. Additionally, TATCO will continue to provide market access to our agro-processors by financing their exposure to foreign markets when necessary and appropriate. For instance, a contingent of agro-processors from Tobago will be afforded opportunities to attend Tobago Day in New York in August 2024 to market their products to our diaspora community and to the distribution sector in the tri-state area. Madam Presiding Officer, some of the other initiatives of TATCO include developing a food testing facility in the island with emphasis on nutritional value and microbiological profiling, which will be available to all processors. So the days of toting your ice cream down to Trinidad for testing will be behind us. 2, building export capacity among processors through training in aspects of food safety modernization, compliance, and goods manufacturing practices. 3, establishing at least one time-sharing processing facility in Western Tobago. The one in the east has started, one in Tobago West will also be done. 4th, networking with TARI, UTT, and UWI to provide certified training in food technology, especially for youths and women in Tobago. And finally, providing processors with support and training to enhance their business acumen. It is estimated that TATCO will spend $11 million on these initiatives, among others. Madam Presiding Officer, allow me to turn to education and human capital development. Madam Presiding Officer, education and human capital development continues to be a primary focus of this administration. We are also cognizant of the transformative socio-economic impacts of a highly educated and technically skilled and savvy population. Just look around this horseshoe and you will see living examples of the transformative socio-economic impact of a highly educated and technologically driven population. In this regard, the Division of Education, Research and Technology will develop and deliver programs and projects designed to ensure the provision of quality education to our population within the formal education system and informal learning through partnerships with the wider community. In fiscal 2025, we propose to incrementally and strategically infuse selected aspects of Tobago's history, culture, heritage, and geopolitics as part of our Tobago's century curriculum rollout. Our aim is to develop a strong sense of self-identity anchored in the value identity of Tobagonians in the island's school population. That in itself is a strategy in treating with crime. Towards this end, the recently appointed Tobago-centric Curriculum Committee will, 1, hold wide-scale stakeholder engagement events, 2, organize teacher training and professional development workshops, 3, promote collaborations such as competitions involving other divisions, departments, communities, and in particular the Division of Tourism, the division with responsibility for community development, and the division with responsibility for food security. 4th, we'll record and document authentic oral presentations, including stories and plays, as well as folk songs, interviews, and speeches. Madam Presiding Officer, another selected area of focus is transforming the island's education system from a teaching-centric one to a learning-centric one. We have taken note of the learning outcomes of students, which are seemingly pointed to an unacceptable relationship between teaching and learning. I know the multifaceted nature of this issue, but being a former teacher, I also know that the primary factor is the teacher. In fact, the most important factor in the classroom for student learning is the teacher factor. Therefore, Madam Presiding Officer, my administration will take all the necessary actions to start addressing the worrying problem. In fiscal 2025, we will ensure that 1, the teacher leaders, accountable principals, and effective school program is launched. This program is intended to hold principals and teachers directly accountable for the students' learning outcomes in their schools. A foundational activity of this program will be comprehensive analysis of student performance over the last decade and the systems used in schools to account for student performance. 2, principals insist that all teachers prepare and submit comprehensive teaching plans for review and approval. This is aimed at ensuring that teaching is done using appropriate teaching and learning methodologies that will positively impact student learning outcomes. 3, extensive teacher training, monitoring, and evaluation allow for data-driven interventions to improve student performance. 4th, schools are provided with modern teaching aids and other teaching support systems and devices for their use. There is also a continuation of the Community Impact Learning Enhancement Program targeting students that scored under 30% in the SEA with focus on literacy, numeracy, student discipline, parental involvement, and teacher efficacy. In this current fiscal year, the division has expanded this program to include the top performing students in the SCA program to ensure that they are prepared differently for secondary school. The program is a collaboration between the divisions of education and of community development and is budgeted to cost $5 million in fiscal 2025. Madam Presiding Officer, we also aim to leverage the use of information technology and other online learning applications across the entire education system. We have developed and accepted by the Executive Council an online learning policy that will guide our strategy for hybrid education. This policy was developed with all stakeholders around the table, including the teachers' union. We are at a stage where we are arranging to conduct all the necessary consultations with student and parent stakeholders, as well as pilot studies to refine and finalize the policy in a way that meets the needs of our student population. To support this initiative, we will invest in IT infrastructure in all our schools and procure the devices needed for effective online teaching and learning. Training will also be provided to all stakeholders, including parents and students. We propose to expend $2 million on the pilot project in fiscal 25. Madam Presiding Officer, other fiscal projects and initiatives of the Division of Education in fiscal 25 are as follows. Start of the construction of the long-awaited Scarborough Secondary School. We budgeted $15 million for the completion of pre-construction activities and the commencement of construction in fiscal 2025. Secondly, we will design and implement school-specific safety plans to address indiscipline and the incidence of school violence. This will be done in collaboration with the Division of Community Development, Youth Development and Sport under the Tobago Community Safety Program at a budgeted cost of $5 million. Thirdly, there will be the revision of the Financial Assistance Program to ensure greater alignment and uptake between the offerings for financial assistance and the island's projected labor needs. We propose an expenditure of $4 million in fiscal 2025. Repair and upgrades of our aging school plants at a budgeted cost of $30 million. Construction of an early childhood center in Corland is about to commence, and we budget that will cost $8 million. The start of construction of the education campus for our special needs children at Signal Hill, $4 million is budgeted for this project in 2025, but in 2024, land preparation will begin. Madam Presiding Officer, permit me to speak to our selected health and social safety net support strategies. Madam Presiding Officer, the promotion and protection of the health and well-being of all continue to be a highly selected priority of this administration. Good health is an inalienable human right according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as it allows people to reach their full potential, children to be better learners, workers to be more productive, and parents to better care for their children. Relatedly, Goal 3 of the SDGs speak of ensuring healthy lives and the promotion of well-being for all. Madam Presiding Officer, as you know, the primary entity charged with delivering health and wellness to the Tobago population is the Tobago Regional Health Authority. TRHA delivers primary and secondary health care through the Scarborough General Hospital, the Roxborough Hospital, and a network of 22 health and outreach centers. For fiscal 2025, TRHA is mandated to focus on 4 selected priorities, namely 1. Service reliability, predictability, and sustainability. 2. Prevention and wellness. 3. Complete operationalization of Roxborough Hospital. And 4. Digitization. Madam Presiding Officer, an important project in our program of works is to promote service reliability, predictability, and sustainability through the purchase of new critical equipment. Towards this end, in fiscal 2025, the TRHA will acquire new equipment for medical imaging, the laboratory, the operating theatre, and urology for both Scarborough and the Roxborough hospitals. The equipment includes a 64-slice CT scanner, a laparoscopic tower to allow for laparoscopic surgeries at the Roxborough Health Facility. Sorry if I butchered that, doctors. Portable X-ray machines, a colonoscope, an endoscope, a cystoscopy set to allow for the diagnosis and management of gastrointestinal diseases, and tabletop and horizontal sterilizers. The TRHA has budgeted to expend $19.2 million on this project in fiscal 2025. Madam Presiding Officer, we also propose to deploy a computerized equipment and facility maintenance management system. The system will monitor the lifespan of equipment and schedule timely maintenance to improve the reliability of all critical plant and equipment. This will serve to reduce downtime and replace assets in a timely manner. Additionally, the TRHA will institute a series of measures to engender shorter waiting times for diagnostic services. That will include the use of AI where possible. In this regard, to reduce the waiting time for reports on all medical imaging and pathology services, specialists will be recruited on both a full-time and part-time basis, and experts will be outsourced. The project is estimated to address a backlog of approximately 1,500 samples and images, and will cost an estimated $3 million. Madam Presiding Officer, 1,500 samples and images. That's the backlog. $3 million to clear that backlog. Another initiative geared to delivering services that are reliable, predictable, and sustainable is the procurement of 4 ambulances. The TRHA proposes a phased change out of the old ambulance fleet and has budgeted an expenditure of $6 million for the procurement of 4 new ambulances. Further, the TRHA proposes to upgrade the buildings and grounds of various health centers at a budgeted cost of $1.6 million. The Diabetic Wellness Center will also be re-established to monitor diabetes and deliver health education and health promotion for diabetic patients towards an improved quality of life for them. Its primary focus is to reduce complications associated with the disease, such as strokes, renal failure, and limb amputations, and provides patients with innovative treatment options, inclusive of consultations on diet, nutrition, and eye and foot care. TRHA proposes to spend $3 million on this initiative in fiscal 2025. The Scarborough Waste Management and Disposal Program will be implemented in fiscal 2025 at a budgeted cost of $3 million. Madam Presiding Officer, the full operationalizing of Roxborough Hospital is expected as estimated by the 1st of September and will give effect to the following services: the opening of inpatient services and 24/7 accident and emergency operations, a colon cancer screening program using fecal occult blood testing. This program will be used for early detection of colon cancer due to the high costs of a colonoscopy. The FOBT screening program, which is a recognized tool for population screening for colon cancer, will be introduced. Vascular access surgery. This is necessary for patients who need dialysis treatment, and therefore a part-time vascular access surgeon will be engaged. The Meds to Bed program. This program will seek to educate patients on their medications by allowing the pharmacists to play an active role in patient education. Madam Presiding Officer, the enhanced and elevated use of digital applications in our healthcare and wellness services delivery remains a priority program. In fiscal 2025, we will continue the implementation of the integrated hospital management systems, which will enable improved management of and access to patient information through an integrated digital platform that seamlessly connects patient interface across the entire healthcare delivery via a unique identifier. An estimated $4.5 million is budgeted to be expended on this in fiscal 2025. Madam Presiding Officer, following the unfortunate neonatal deaths that occurred recently in Trinidad, we took the opportunity to review and assess our neonatal operational protocols and other related matters. Coming out of this review, we have decided to upgrade and rebrand our neonatal care program in fiscal 2025 at a cost of $2 million. Madam Presiding Officer, I will now turn my attention to our selected strategies to protect vulnerable groups. The work of the Department of Social Protection is critical to the safeguarding and improvement of the quality of life of the most vulnerable among us. In fiscal 2025, we propose to 1, make the grant application process less tedious in order to enable faster dissemination of grants to successful applicants. 2, to assess the feasibility of further increasing the threshold of the REACH grant program. 3, create new social assistance grant offerings such as the Kinship Support Program, which will provide financial support to relatives taking care of children in instances where their parents are either unable or are absent. The program also includes the Home Modification Initiative to assist persons with disabilities to improve mobility and accessibility to and within their homes. In addition, Madam Presiding Officer, we are currently working assiduously towards the digitization of the business processes of the Department of Social Services. The background work to digitize the entire case management aspect of the social grants program is currently ongoing. Our goal is that by the end of the first quarter of fiscal 2025, clients will be able to apply to have their case managed and receive grants digitally. Madam Presiding Officer, this administration has taken the policy decision to establish a diversity and inclusion unit within the Department of Social Protection. The core mandate of the DIU is to develop practical solutions to reduce the inequities faced by historically marginalized segments of the population, such as the elderly and the persons with disabilities. This is a selected priority aimed at improving the socio-economic well-being of this segment of the population. Madam Presiding Officer, let me now present our plans to improve housing opportunities and housing quality. Madam Presiding Officer, fit-for-purpose quality housing is a significant contributor to socio-economic development and has long been recognized as a basic human need. Therefore, the provision of affordable housing solutions to low and middle-income residents, as well as the improvements to our housing quality in Tobago, remains a selected priority of this administration. We are forever mindful of the fact that existing failures in our real estate and housing market place the cost of land and home ownership out of the reach of the vast majority of our citizens. We are therefore committed to doing whatever is necessary to address this historical failure of the real estate markets in Tobago. In this regard, in fiscal 2025, we propose to start construction of 54 housing solutions in Riseland Housing Development in collaboration with the Inter-American Development Bank. In fact, let me inform this House, as I've done before, that the Tobago House of Assembly has done everything required and our information is stuck at the Ministry of Housing and has not been sent to the Inter-American Development Bank, stalling this project. But with or without the collaboration, we shall build these housing units in Riseland. We will begin infrastructure works for 447 housing units at the 46-acre Shervan housing development. The infrastructure designs have been scoped at an estimated cost of 94 million and are expected to be completed in 36 months in 4 phases. We have budgeted 20 million to do phase 1 in fiscal 2025. Then we will begin the construction of 140 housing units at Adventure Housing Development phase 2 at a budgeted cost of 7 million. We will start pre-infrastructure construction works and the processes for the distribution of 75 parcels of land at Bacolet. We will commence infrastructure works and start the processes towards the distribution of 35 parcels of land at Adelphi Mason Hall. The designs were scoped at an estimated cost of 12 million with a completion period of 16 months. We will complete the infrastructure works and the distribution of 37 available parcels of land at Castara Housing Development at a budgeted cost of 3 million. This is additional to what was given out recently and what we gave out in the past. Construction and distribute 50 housing units under the Social Assistance Program and the Home Ownership Made Equal Program at a cost of 14 million. Madam Presiding Officer, the Executive Council has taken the policy decision to establish the Tobago Urban and Rural Housing Corporation as a special purpose company under the Division of Settlements public utilities, and rural development. This company has collaborative functionalities with the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, and has as its primary mandate sustainable urban and rural development, the provision of fit-for-purpose affordable housing solutions, and the general improvement of the living conditions of Tobagonians. Madam Presiding Officer, our strategic approach to the development of the housing sector on the island also includes providing opportunities and financial support for Tobagonians to enhance the condition of their homes. In this regard, we will continue the streamlining of the application process to access the home improvement grants and subsidies. In fiscal 2025, our target is to process 90% of the applications received under the Home Improvement Program within 21 days. We propose to expend $15 million to the benefit of 1,900 applicants. In addition, we will continue to collaborate with Habitat for Humanity to upgrade our housing stock and increase protection against natural disasters and the effects of climate change. This collaboration will also serve to strengthen capacities and knowledge in risk reduction, mitigation, climate change, and disaster management. Habitat for Humanity is investing $1.5 million to be matched by a similar investment amount by the Tobago House of Assembly. Madam Presiding Officer, a critical component of our housing program that provides for safety is our street lighting and electrification program. In fiscal 2025, we propose to embark upon a street lighting campaign with a targeted installation of 600 street lights in the eastern and northern part of the island to the direct benefit of 75 families and at an estimated cost of $3 million. Madam Presiding Officer, please allow me to now turn my attention to community empowerment, youth development, and sport. Notice, Madam Presiding Officer, that this administration views community empowerment, youth development, and sport as a critical building block in our development efforts towards making Tobago the greatest little island on the planet. And that's why we are rebranding it from just being community development, but to community empowerment. To that end, the following priority programs, plans, projects, and initiatives are selected for execution in fiscal 2025. 1. Implement the targeted Spark, Step Up, Take Charge, Innovative, Restore, Monitor, and Evaluate. So it's Spark, Step Up, Take Charge, Innovate, Restore, Monitor, and Evaluate. When read together, spells out STIRMI, operational plan of the division. The STIRMI is designed to create safer communities and environments for us to live, play, work, and growing. The following projects and initiatives will be rolled out in the 37 communities across the island on a phased basis. Under STIRMI at a budgeted cost of $38 million. 1. Conduct parenting and family management training with expanded support services in communities. A targeted 20% of families across the island stand to benefit in phase 1 of that program. 2. Expand the community-based vocational skill training program. into a feeder into the TVET Academy, an institutional strategy for developing our handicraft industry to satisfy local market demand, and boost exports. 3, implement the Promoting Real Opportunities for Youth or the Poor Youth Program, an extensive Tobago Youth Internship and Apprenticeship Program designed to centralize the management of all internships currently being executed across all the divisions towards ensuring the exposure of our youth to local, national, regional, and international opportunities for real industry exposure, experience, and employment. In fiscal 2025, an estimated 270 young persons will benefit directly from this program. 4th, an extensive capacity building program to assist our community, youth, and sporting organizations to take charge of their organizations and communities in a managed and coordinated response to crime and violence, and to promote sustainable development of our people. 5, introduce a community-based management system that will be resourced through collaboration with civil society organizations, the private sector, and the THA. 6, implement the Electoral District Fund to activate the THA's commitment to inclusive and participatory governance and ensure the community-based development initiatives are funded. In fiscal 2025, we have budgeted $3 million for this program, with an allotment of $150,000 per electoral district and the remaining $750,000 earmarked to meet administrative costs based on available resources at this time. It is calculated that this program will deliver community-based solutions to some deep-seated community challenges. Madam Presiding Officer, it's regrettable that this program has not started as yet, but we are guaranteeing that it will be started within 2 months. Next, we will enact the Tobago Youth Empowerment Strategy aimed at mainstreaming youth development priorities and co-creating sustainable futures for our youth. Then we will implement the Tobago Community Safety Program with the tagline, "When you are safe, I am safe," as part of our crime prevention strategy alluded to earlier. We will complete the upgrades of existing sporting, community, and youth facilities and initiate a continuous program of maintenance. Madam Presiding Officer, in terms of ongoing projects, we propose to restart the Backlet Indoor Complex with an extended scope and projected completion in 2026. We budgeted an expenditure of $24 million in fiscal 2025. The Shuttleville Community Center, which is resuming in a few days, we propose an estimated cost of $10 million and a completion time of 12 months. The Goodwood Pavilion, which is earmarked for completion in December 2024 at a cost of $7.5 million. The Corland Beachport Arena Phase 2, which provides for the construction of restrooms, concession booths, and player facilities, and the installation of lights at a budgeted cost of $5 million and a completion time of 9 months. Madam Presiding Officer, the following projects will also be initiated. Plymouth Pump Track as a vehicle for improving community safety, entrepreneurship, and professional sport development in the area of cycling and related sports. The Scarborough Community Center upgrade works at a budgeted cost of $2 million will see Scarborough, after such a long time, regaining its community center. Fun fact, Madam Presiding Officer, the Scarborough Community Center was taken since the first chairman, Mr. A.N.R. Robinson, to facilitate housing of the Tobago House of Assembly. We are now in 2024 and we are finally preparing to return the Scarborough Community Center to the people of Scarborough. There will be the establishment of the Technical Vocational Education and Training Academy, or TVET Academy. The academy will provide for CVQ and TTNVQ certifications at all levels. We will launch the Youth Agriculture Training Program and the Tobago Youth Shade House Project to introduce and upskill our young people in modern agriculture practices to boost food production, processing and export, and engender sustainable development practices. We will initiate plans to set up the Tobago Sports Company by the end of fiscal 2025, and this company will be charged with the mandate to professionalize the sports to allow for the realization of economic benefits on Tobago's investments in sports. We will also implement the Active Involved Citizens Program to provide ongoing programs and support in services at all community, youth, and sporting facilities to actively engage residents and cater to their personal growth and development. Madam Presiding Officer, the key to unlocking Tobago's development must include opening our community facilities and have them fully utilized by members of the community. Please permit me, Madam Presiding Officer, to now look at our plans for strategic investment in physical infrastructure. Madam Presiding Officer, this administration places great socio-economic value and importance on its policy agenda to develop a modern, safe, and green physical infrastructure landscape in Tobago. To initiate this ambition, we have strategically selected some key infrastructure projects for execution in fiscal 2025. In this regard, we propose to execute the following projects. 1. The Bad Rock Roadway Realignment and Improvement Project. It is critically important to the restoration of the integrity of the Windward Main Road in that area, which was significantly affected by a landslip in 2022. The technical assessments, feasibility, surveys, and designs have been completed. The project is now shovel-ready at an estimated $15 million. 2. The construction of the Turpin Bend Bypass Road at Charlottesville. Let me go slowly here. This is another high-priority selected infrastructure project. The area is prone to serious accidents and poses a continuous threat to the safety of commuters. When completed, this long-promised project will also create safe access to lands for village expansion. By design, this project will be completed in 14 months at a cost of $14 million. We have budgeted for an expenditure of at a cost of $10 million. We have budgeted for an expenditure of $8 million in fiscal 2025. 3. The realignment of Northside Road in Runnymede in the area of the Silk Cotton Tree. This project is urgently needed to sustain safe traffic flows to and from the villages in the northern parts of Tobago. The roots of the silk cotton tree have affected the structural integrity of the road and must be treated with. The project by design includes realignment of the road and construction of retaining structures. The project will be ready for execution in fiscal 2025 at a cost of $5 million. Approximately 50 persons will be employed during the construction of the realignment of the North Side Road in Runnymede in the area of the silk cotton tree. Fourth, the completion of the Easterfield Road from Mason Hall to Stolly Park. This is a selected priority project for fiscal 2025. It will enable quick and safe traffic to and from Mason Hall to Stolly Park, thereby facilitating commercial vehicular access to the Hillsborough Water Treatment Facility. It will also improve commercial and residential investment viability of the lands in these areas. Member for Mount St. George, Goodwood, your farmers will be happy for this project. The project by design and scope is estimated to cost $28 million and has a construction period of 24 months. Over 100 persons are calculated to be employed during the life of this project. The Cove Claude Noel Highway Roundabout. This roundabout will serve as the primary traffic management system for the safe integration of traffic to and from the newly constructed Dr. Winston Murray Boulevard, or otherwise called the Friendship Canaan Connector Road, and the Claude Noel Highway. The project will also positively impact the anticipated increase in traffic that will come with the operationalizing of the new airport to the benefit of thousands of commuters and other users on a daily basis. As a side note, Madam Presiding Officer, this will help citizens getting in and out of FCB Bank. In fiscal 2025, an expenditure of $7 million has been budgeted for this project, which is expected to be completed in 9 months, and 20 jobs will be generated during construction. 6, upgrade of secondary roads program. This program is designed to effect major upgrade and improvement works to the secondary road network across the island. In the main, it involves the construction of drainage and retaining systems, realignment, and resurfacing works. The program is designed and scoped to initially enhance safety, commuting comfort, and the overall integrity of our secondary roads to the direct benefit and joy of every Tobagonian. We have calculated a spend of $200 million on this project over a period of 36 months. In fiscal 2025, we have budgeted for an expenditure of $35 million, and it is estimated that approximately 350 persons will be directly deployed or employed in this program. So $200 million over 36 months, but in the next fiscal 2025, we will spend $35 million of that $200 million. 7, Claude Noel Highway rehabilitation and upgrade works. Madam Presiding Officer, this project is designed and scoped to restore the overall integrity of the island's main roadway. The core of this project will be the areas along the highway that are showing signs of significant structural deterioration. The scope of works includes milling, compacting, resurfacing, installation of guardrails, and civil infrastructure works. This project will be hugely impactful on the safety and comfort of the entire population and visitors alike. We have budgeted a spend of 40 million on this project in fiscal 2025. It is estimated that approximately 115 persons will be directly employed during its execution. Madam Presiding Officer, I now turn our strategy for environment, climate change, and energy. Madam Presiding Officer, environmental sustainability is one of the core priorities of Tobago's development agenda. Currently, the departments and units with the mandates for the environment, energy, and coastal management are resident in different divisions across the THA, which makes policy coordination and integration difficult. Only recently, the Executive Council approved the policy decision for the establishment of the Department of Environment, Climate Change and Energy in the Office of the Chief Secretary. This institutional arrangement, through which the island's environmental integrity and credentials will be managed and monitored, integrates the functions of the following 4 units: the Environmental Management Unit, the Climate Change Unit, Energy and Energy Transition Unit, and the Coastal Zone Management Unit, which was previously at the Division of Infrastructure. Madam Presiding Officer, this pioneering move in the local, national, and regional context, which aligns Tobago's institutional responsibilities for the environment with the direct executive oversight of the head of the island's government, is indeed a unique and significant development. The integration of the 4 units allows for the development and implementation of Tobago's specific policy prescriptions related to the sustainable management of land, air, and water resources, carbon neutrality and green energy transition, coastal zone monitoring and management, and climate change adaptation and mitigation. Madam Presiding Officer, the new department will also allow for the bridging of governance arrangements through which the private sector and civil society can directly influence climate change policy and actions through the Climate Change Standing Committee and the Climate Change Working Group. The bridging of governance arrangements is in line with the THA's recognition that effective environmental and climate change management necessitates a whole of government, whole of society approach. This, or the deliberate alignment of climate policy with disaster response and climate financing, is another critical functional requirement. In this regard, the Department of Environment, Climate Change and Energy will be strategically aligned with TEMA and the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy. Madam Presiding Officer, TEMA's work will provide invaluable data and support for the new department, including institutional synergies between climate change adaptation, mitigation, and disaster management. Madam Presiding Officer, in fiscal 2025, the DECCE will develop and produce the following: an environment scoping method and associated reports, a climate change scoping method and associated reports, an energy and energy transition scoping method and associated reports, a coastal protection scoping method and associated reports. Madam Presiding Officer, the findings and adjacent recommendations of the reports will inform the THA's strategic institutional response or responses to the island's ever-evolving environmental, climate change, energy and coastal management challenges. We propose to expand 5 million on these initiatives in fiscal 2025. Additionally, Madam Presiding Officer, the DECCE will assume a leading role in the ongoing works emanating from the oil spill in collaboration with TEMA and other state agencies. Madam Presiding Officer, the foregoing constitutes our underlying policy focus and associated programs, projects, and initiatives for fiscal 2025, selected and developed to move Tobago along the pathway of becoming the greatest little island on the planet. The respective line secretaries and assistant secretaries will elaborate on the details of our 2025 proposed program of works during the ensuing debate. We read that again, so I won't hear in the immediate opposing response that we need details. The respective line secretaries and assistant secretaries will elaborate on our details of our 2025 proposed program of works during the ensuing debate. If I am to elaborate on all of them, then we won't be close to finish. Madam Presiding Officer, the 2025 expenditure estimates. It is important that the contextual issues and data that informed the expenditure estimates for fiscal 2025 be presented here. A deliberate and careful study of the September 14, 2000 report of the Dispute Resolution Commission, which was adopted by our Parliament after debate, revealed the following. It revealed that A, the Commission considered 4.03%, which was Tobago's population as a share of the national population, as a minimum per capita starting point in determining what was fair, practicable in the allocation of financial resources to the Assembly in the national budget. B, the Commission recommended an upper limit of 6.9%, which they felt spoke to the legal considerations listed under Section 43 of the THA Act, which includes physical separation of Tobago by sea from Trinidad and Tobago's distinct identity, isolation from the principal national growth centers, absence of the multiplier effect of expenditure and investment, private and public, made in Trinidad, and to some extent those made in Tobago where the taxes are paid in Trinidad, restricted opportunities for employment and career fulfillment, the impracticability of participation by residents of Tobago in the major educational, cultural, and sporting facilities located in Trinidad. Madam Presiding Officer, notably, the Commission also recommended that it would be necessary to review this percentage from year to year in light of the prevailing circumstances. The Commission further noted that whatever percentage was arrived at should be reflected not only in the parliamentary allocation, but critically in the releases made by the government to the Assembly. In the revelation of the foregoing, Madam Presiding Officer, it is pellucid that the central government stands in breach of the Parliament-authorized recommendations of the DRC in that it has not released the full parliamentary allocations to the Assembly from fiscal 2017 to 2023, with the result that there has been an accumulated shortfall of $166.4 million. If that isn't wickedness, I don't know what is. Adjacently, Madam Presiding Officer, successive central governments have refused to provide any allocation to fund the Section 43 considerations listed above, and for which the DRC recommended the upper limit of 6.9%. Madam Presiding Officer, I'm going through the DRC report. Additionally, over the past 23 years, there has been no review of the percentage range as recommended by the DRC. This static state of affairs has left the THA allocation locked at a minimum of $4.03 of every $100 spent over the past 23 years, when so much has changed. Madam Presiding Officer, it is important to note here that Tobago's population as a share of the national population has grown continuously from 4.58% in 2011 to 5.05% in 2022. What this is saying, Madam Presiding Officer, is that in keeping with the underpinnings of the recommendations of the DRC, the THA share of the national budget from fiscal 2011 should have been a minimum of 4.6% and going annually to a minimum of 5.1% in fiscal 2022. It is in this light that I indicated to the Minister of Finance and his team from the ministry during our 2024 pre-budget consultation that the 4.03% minimum share was insufficient and grossly inadequate. Consequently, I wrote the Minister of Finance indicating that the THA was requesting a fair share of 5.5%. The mean of the percentage range of 4.03% and 6.9%. I also wrote the Prime Minister in keeping with Part 5 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996 that sets out the procedure for triggering the Dispute Resolution Commission. In my formal complaint, the Prime Minister in January 2024 reiterated the matters I had been in discussion with the Minister of Finance about, to wit, that there was 166.4 million in unreleased parliamentary allocations to the THA, and that the Tobago population share of the national budget had now reached 5.1%. I made two proposals to the Prime Minister as to how the matters should be settled. One, that the THA be given 166.4 million, and two, that in keeping with the DRC recommendation, the THA share of the 2025 national budget should be increased in the midterm review up to 5.5% from the 4.30%. Madam Presiding Officer, the Prime Minister responded, indicating that he had sent my complaint to the Attorney General for his advice. However, to date, I have not received any further communication from the Prime Minister on this most important issue of Tobagonians being allocated and given our correct, fair, and appropriate minimum share of the national budget. I have prepared a missive seeking an update on the matter, and it will be dispatched to the Prime Minister soon. Relatedly, Madam Presiding Officer, it is important to mention here that both the current PNM administration and the opposition UNC prepared and laid constitution amendment bills in the National Parliament proposing percentage shares of 8% in 2021 and 6.9% in 2023 of the national budget, respectively. Madam Presiding Officer, I am certain that all, inclusive of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, will agree that the THA's formal request of a minimum share of 5.8% of the 2025 national budget is reasonable and just and in alignment with the Tobago population of 5.05% in 2022. In light of the foregoing, I predicted the estimates of expenditure for the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal 2025 on a percentage share of 5.8% of the national budget at 6.58 billion. Of 65.8 billion. I am predicting that the national budget will be 65.8 billion. And therefore, Tobago is asking for 5.8% of 65.8 billion. Accordingly, Madam Presiding Officer, the total estimates of expenditure for fiscal 2025 are calculated as 3.956 billion, of which the current expenditure amount to 2.819 billion. Development program expenditure estimates amount to 1.002 billion. URP expenditure to 91.9 million, and CPEP expenditure to 43.8 million. Madam Presiding Officer, any allocation to the THA in fiscal 2025 that is less than the 5.8% will constitute a non-alleviation of the per capita expenditure inequality that has defined the national budget since 1962 and more recently from 2011. All Tobago is requesting is budgeting or budgetary per capita expenditure equality as a minimum revenue share to the THA, of which is calculated at a measly $5.80 out of every budgeted $100 proposed in the national expenditure for fiscal 2025. All we are asking for is $5.80 of every 100. Madam Presiding Officer, this is a fair and reasonable ask. Recurrent expenditure estimates and highlights. Madam Presiding Officer, the recurrent estimates for fiscal 2025 totaling 2.817 billion are disaggregated as follows. Personal expenditure 829.8 million, goods and services 855.3 million, minor equipment and purchases 29.4 million, current transfers and subsidies 1.1 billion. Madam Presiding Officer, the disaggregation of the recurrent expenditure estimates by division for fiscal 2025 is as follows. Assembly Legislature, 24.7 million. Office of the Chief Secretary, 193.3 million. Finance, Trade and the Economy, 199.5 million. Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation, 197.9 million. Education, Research and Technology, 556 million. Community Development, Youth Development and Sport, 117.6 million. Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, 389.7 million. Food Security, Natural Resources and Sustainable Development, 197.1 million. Health, Wellness and Social Protection, 879.8 million. And Settlements, Public Utilities and Rural Development, 52.4 million. Madam Presiding Officer, some major programmed recurrent expenditures for fiscal 2025 are Tobago Regional Health Authority, 613 million. The Tobago Festivals Commission Limited, 50 million. Tobago Tourism Agency Limited, 50 million. The School Feeding Program, 42 million. Farmland Development, 26 million. Loan Guarantee Program, 25 million. Tobago Agribusiness Development Company, 11 million. the Tobago Reforestation and Watershed Rehabilitation Program, 10 million, and the Tobago Performing Arts Company, 8 million. Madam Presiding Officer, I will now present the development program estimates. Madam Presiding Officer, the estimates for the development program for fiscal 2025 amount to 1.002 billion. Across the sectors, the estimates are disaggregated as follows. Pre-investment, 0.5 million. Productive sectors, 1.5 million. Economic infrastructure, 398 million. Social infrastructure, 424.8 million. Multi-sectorial and other services, 177.2 million. Madam Presiding Officer, in keeping with our strategic objectives to drive the business development and stimulate the economy, the development program estimates provide support for Venture Capital Equity Fund Limited, 10 million. Enterprise Assistant Grant Program, 6.6 million. The Business Incubator Program, 6 million. The Enterprise Development Loan Program, 4.6 million. EID Cut, 4 million. Madam Presiding Officer, as we continue to develop the island's tourism sector, the development program estimates cater for Tobago Tourism Agency, 25.3 million. Storby Beach Facility, 15 million. Pigeon Point Infrastructure Works, 8 million. Highlands Nature Trail Development, 3 million. Madam Presiding Officer, as we continue the program of modernization of our education system to provide learning outcomes, our development program estimates make provision as follows. Improvements to primary schools, 15 million. Reconstruction of Scarborough Secondary School, 15 million. Improvement to secondary schools, 15 million. Construction of childhood centers, of early childhood centers, 8 million. Implementation of Pan in the Classroom, 3 million. Resources for school e-testing, 2.5 million. Madam Presiding Officer, as we seek to provide affordable and fit-for-purpose housing solutions and improve our housing quality on the island, our development estimates provide for, among others, Shervan Housing Development, 20 million. Home Improvement Grant and Subsidy, 15 million. An Affordable Housing Project, 14 million. Corland Estate Land Development, 9 million. Adventure Housing Development Phase 2, 7 million. THA and Habitat for Humanity Partnership for Home Improvement, 3 million. Madam Presiding Officer, as we continue to upgrade and modernize the island's road network, our development program estimates provide for, among others, road reforestation program, 40 million. Or road resurfacing program, 40 million. Major improvement works on secondary roads, 35 million. Storby Local Road Extension, 35 million. Windward Road Special Development Program, 15 million. Bad Rock Roadway Realignment and Improvement, 15 million. And Claude Noe Highway Roundabout, 7 million. Other expenditure estimates, Madam Presiding Officer, in fiscal 2025, we intend to spend 91.9 million and 4.3 million for URP and CPEP, respectively. These figures were calculated based on the increased salaries of workers in these programs. Madam Presiding Officer, I now present the financing options. Financing the 2025 expenditure estimates of tax and non-tax revenues. Madam Presiding Officer, for fiscal 2025, the estimates of tax and non-tax revenues are as follows. Taxes on income and profit, 133.9 million. Taxes on property, 3.9 million. Taxes on goods and services, 70 million. Taxes on international trade, 2.6 million. Other taxes, 4.2 million. Total tax revenue estimated at 214.5 million. Property income tax, 0.03 million. Other non-tax revenue, 1.31 million. Total non-tax revenue, 1.34 million. Total revenue, 215.9 million. Madam Presiding Officer, the total revenue projected to be collected in Tobago for fiscal 2025 is 215.9 million. However, it must be noted here that this is not an accurate and true picture of the revenues generated in Tobago. As it is well known, there are significant revenue streams generated in Tobago that are collected in Trinidad and not remitted to Tobago. Madam Presiding Officer, permit me at this juncture to discuss the issue of Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority and the property tax. Act number 17 of 2021, which legally provides for the establishment of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, was passed and assented to on December 23rd, 2021, mere days after this administration assumed office and 48 hours before the celebration of Christmas 2021. I am not sure as to whether this development was coincidental or calculated, but given their data, I feel it's more calculated. In keeping with the central government's recent push to operationalize the Revenue Authority, we have identified several defects in the Act, which were seemingly designed to place Tobago and the Tobago House of Assembly at a serious disadvantage. Madam Presiding Officer, the legislation reveals a curious but not surprising insensitivity to the express aspiration of Tobagonians for self-determination, and it can be justifiably classified as a piece of colonial legislation. For instance, Madam Presiding Officer, the Act does not provide for the THA to have any legal or formal remit over the establishment of the authority in Tobago. The organizational structure of the authority in Tobago, thus creating confusion and anxiety among the staff at present in Tobago. The functional and reporting relationship between the THA and the authority. The THA's legal authority over the revenues collected by the authority in Tobago, which is the first item of responsibility of the THA under Act 40 of 1996. Madam Presiding Officer, these are few of the major issues arising out of the passage of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority Act. It is important to note here that the authority is by nature a legislative creature, and as such the defects identified must be comprehensively rectified before the THA can support the operationalizing of the authority in Tobago. In this regard, I have formally written to the Prime Minister requesting an urgent meeting to discuss this very important issue. Madam Presiding Officer, after the national frenzy to complete the assessment role, as well as the inconsistencies and anomalies that have characterized the assessments issued to property owners, there has been a deafening silence on the matter. Madam Presiding Officer, my political intelligence has informed me that the intention of the central government is to delay its implementation until after the general election. Let us not be fooled. For some of us in Tobago, however, our mantra is clear. Property tax implementation after we can get our lands in our names. Imagine having to pay property tax on lands that your family for generations cannot remove the colonial masters' names from the deeds. Imagine having to pay property tax on lands you cannot collateralize or cannot mortgage against. After spending years building your own home out of pocket because you can't get a loan and struggling to complete said home, you are now required to pay property tax on said property. It is for this reason that in fiscal 2025, the THA will open a legal property desk staffed with competent and patient lawyers to assist Tobagonians with the burden of administrating for their property. But, Madam Presiding Officer, this is only a stopgap measure until such time as laws are passed to rectify this historical injustice. Madam Presiding Officer, I will now turn to our proposed engagement with multilateral funding agencies. Madam Presiding Officer, we intend to deepen our relationships with our multilateral funding partners such as the IDB and the Caribbean Development Bank and the United Nations Development Programme towards enhancing access to grant funding and technical assistance. It was only recently that the IDB made a two-day journey with sector and subject matter experts to discuss ongoing projects and future initiatives. It was there that we learned that the housing program in Riseland was never sent from the ministry to the IDB. It is worth noting here that the THA has secured $50,000 US in grant funding from the IDB to develop a new public-private partnership policy framework that meets the standards of the new procurement legislation. Another US $100,000 was recently approved by the IDB to assist us with some of the preparatory work for the Tobago Development Fund. Additionally, Madam Presiding Officer, we had a recent meeting with the UNDP to discuss areas of ongoing project collaboration and future joint initiatives as regards the CDB on coming into office. My administration had meetings with senior officials of the bank in relation to the conceptualization, design and funding for the new Scarborough Secondary School and our coastal restoration and protection program, Unfortunately, Madam Presiding Officer, the initiatives was summarily discontinued or dismissed by the express desire of the Minister of Finance. Notwithstanding this, it is our intention to purposefully engage the CDB with the aim of exploiting opportunities for grant funding and technical assistance. In addition, we will continue to pursue access to the approved loan of $100 million from the Development Bank of Latin America, or CAF, which is earmarked for coastal protection works. Madam Presiding Officer, that's another area where the THA has done everything, submitted everything, just been held up by a ministry in Trinidad. Don't worry, God don't like ugly. Madam Presiding Officer, the Assembly has been actively engaged in discussion with CARTAC, the regional technical assistance arm of the IMF, to avail ourselves of their expertise in providing much-needed capacity building and technical support. I am pleased to report that CARTAC has agreed to conduct 3 initial support missions during fiscal 2025. These are in the areas of financial budgeting, project management, public sector accounting, i.e. transitioning to a more streamlined accounting system, and strengthening of the internal audit processes. These missions are at no cost to the Assembly, and reviews will be conducted to determine the further areas of support to be provided. Long-term borrowing. Madam Presiding Officer, we will continue our program, which is geared towards the development of sustainable revenue streams in our special purpose companies, thereby enhancing their ability to engage in long-term commercial borrowing. Madam Presiding Officer, as I conclude, in this ever-revolving panorama of socio-economic development, peace, justice, and safety, our pursuit of constitutional transformation, social justice, and economic development is not a destination, but a journey. Nothing we do now is for today, but all is for tomorrow. Therefore, what is required is unwavering commitment, bold vision, and collaborative action on a scale that transcends political borders and ideologies. It calls for leaders who are not only adept at navigating the intricacies of geopolitics and global markets, but who also possess the empathy, the foresight, and sensitivities to address the needs and aspirations of our people. Tobagonians, as we stand at this juncture, the path forward is illuminated by the flickering flames of hope and tempered by the sobering realities of the present constitutional construct and political culture. It is a path that we know is fraught with challenges, but yet laden with opportunities. Together, let us embark on this journey with resolve, recognizing that the true measure of our success lies in the deployment of more sustainable practices and the legacy of peace and prosperity we leave for generations to come. Madam Presiding Officer, this is why I am committed to leaving Tobago as the greatest little island on the planet for generations to come. My team and I will remain laser focused on what matters most. Tobago must develop, and I dare say, develop in the shortest possible time. Our development as an island has been held back for far too long. We must break the shackles with which we operate, and as our anthem says and declares with boundless faith in our destiny, that Tobago will become the greatest little island on the planet. As Tobagonians, we must band together and fight against the common threats we face. Our cooperative spirit, our resilience, our tenacity, all qualities for which Tobagonians are well known, are what we require to surmount the challenges we face as a people. I remain eternally confident and optimistic in the wisdom, understanding, intelligence, and decisiveness of Tobagonians. Madam Presiding Officer, with that said, let me thank members of this House and the listening public for commuting with me during this presentation. It is my sincere hope that the essence of this presentation will generate new positive energies and excitement that will power and drive our collective efforts, thereby unlocking the socio-economic development of the greatest little island on the planet. Madam Presiding Officer, I so beg to move.
Motion for adjournment.
Leader of Assembly Business.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I now beg to move that this House stands adjourned to Thursday, 27th June at 10 a.m.
Honorable members, the question is that this House now stands adjourned until June 27, 2024 at 10 a.m. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any against? The ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned until June 27, 2024 at 10 a.m. Honorable members, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Presiding Officer.